Now that we have our nails prepped, it's time for step 3 of this dip powder process. Step 3, we are talking all about nail extensions. So let's jump right in and get the skinny on different types of nail extensions. Now, I have a bunch of different nail extensions I've used in the past. I've liked using square tip ones, active length ones. I've even gotten into some of the kind of more pointy, I'm not sure what the correct term for that is, obviously, but some of the more sharp, I guess you could say, nail extensions where there's kind of a point on the nail there. Some of the longer ones, I will say, create kind of a difficult scenario if you are not well versed or skilled at creating an apex shape on the nail. We will go into the apex shape here in just a moment, but basically when you have a long nail, it requires a bit more of building up of the nail. Here is a diagram I will show you. This is showing an apex of a nail. The longer the nail you have, the bigger or higher the apex needs to be. This will support the structure of the longer nail. You'll notice that no one with long nails has a flat nail. So building the apex is an important part of using these longer nail extensions. So to keep things simple on this particular tutorial, we're not going to go with longer nails. We're going to go with active length nails. And so I'll be using these kind of shorter nails that are already kind of pre-shaped to my desired shape. And that's one thing I want to mention, making it easier on yourself to create consistency between all of the different nails. When you're not a skilled or experienced nail technician, such as myself, I am very much an amateur, going with a nail extension that's already pre-shaped for your desired shape is kind of where you're going to want to stay, because it's already, the hard work has already been done for you. The hardest part of adding these nail extensions is just picking out the right sizes and making sure it covers completely your entire nail. And you know, you can file down any nail extension that doesn't quite align with your natural nail. So we'll go into all of those details in the next few steps. In this step 3 here are the supplies we will need. First off, your nail extensions or nail tips. As I mentioned in prior videos, save yourself some time and frustration in the beginning and go ahead and get nail extensions that are the desired length and the desired shape that you're going for. When I first started out, I was picking nail extensions that were really long and then trying to shape them and trim them to the right length. And by doing that, it added a lot of time to my timeline. So it takes several hours to get your manicure done when you're doing it by yourself. And so I just found that by purchasing nail extensions that have the right size, the right length, and the right shape that I'm looking for, I'm not spending a lot of time having to shape them to the desired length and desired shape. So that's what you'll need. First step, your nail extensions. We're also going to be using some nail trimmers if your nail extensions are a little too long or you need to resize them. We're also going to be lightly shaping the sides of our nail extension with a 150 by 150 grit nail file. We'll also be using this duster brush again to brush off any of the dust. We're also going to be using our efile. This will buff out the shine from the nail extension and will also smooth out the seam between the nail extension and the natural nail bed. And then finally, we're going to be using the Kiara Sky Bond Agent, or you can use a dehydrator fluid after we've done all of this sanding and buffing. Last but not least, we're going to need some nail glue. I like using the brush-on nail glues because they allow glue to get around the corners and the edges of the nail extension. You can also use the Bond #1 base formula from your dip powder kit. That will also nail the extension onto your nail nicely. I was looking for it, here it is. This will also act as nail glue if you don't have this nail glue. And in fact, I tried to get the lid off of this one. It glues on pretty tightly. So I guess I will be using my Beetles base glue. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get our nail tips or nail extensions glued on. I decided to go with this Kiss Max Speed nail glue because I didn't want to use up all of my base. So I'm going to be using this nail glue instead of the others I just showed you. Now, when you're picking out your nail extension, you want to make sure, as I mentioned in prior videos, segments, that you want to pick a nail extension that will cover the entire nail. You don't want it to be too small. If it's too small, you're going to end up having it not cover the edges. We can always file off the edges. We can't add to the edge. So going a little bit bigger will help the situation. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and glue on all of my nail extensions. Feel free to fast forward the video, or you're welcome to watch, sit back and relax, meditate while I add on these nail extensions. One thing to keep in mind is not to put too much glue on your nail extension. While the inclination would be that the more glue you add, the stronger it will adhere to the nail. That's not necessarily the case. So I'm just doing one little drop of glue on the nail extension and then holding it there. So far, so good. Becomes a little bit difficult to pick up the nail extensions when you have these nail extensions on. So I'm going to go ahead and trim some of the tips off, the little numbers. As close as I can without trimming the entire nail. Now that we have all of our extensions glued on, it's time to grab our 150 by 150 grit nail file, and we're going to get any of the little nubs off of the end from our number tabs. We're also going to create some evenness on any nails that were put on crooked. For example, you can see this middle nail of mine is a little bit crooked. So I'm going to even that out with this file, but I'm being very, very gentle here because we've just glued these nails on. They're not permanent in this place at the moment because Once we get that dip powder on there and it hardens, then it will be much more secure. So I'm being very careful with this filing to ensure that I'm not going to end up popping the extension off. I'm also going along the sides here. This is where we're going to make sure that the extension fits on the nail properly. It's going to look so much more natural when we have filed the sides of this nail extension to match up with our actual natural nail. So that's what we're going to be doing here in this step. Now that we've filed down the sides and the tips of these nails, we're going to buff out the shine from the nail extension, and we're also going to smooth out the seam between the nail extension and the natural nail. As I mentioned in the last segment, there is a slight seam. If you run your finger along the nail, it'll be a little bump. And so we're basically just going to sand that down a little bit along this line so that we have a smoother surface. I'm going to set this pretty low, similar to the last video I did where we were applying this to our natural nail. I'm going to set this one pretty low at 5. And we're just going to work our way around, removing the shine, gently removing the shine from the nail extension. And again, kind of trying to focus on that seam area, smoothing that out as well. We're not going to be able to get all of it, and I'm being really careful not to file on my natural nail as well. Also being really careful not to pop these nail extensions off. Sometimes they get caught underneath the file and they can easily pop off at this phase. Now that we've added our nail extensions and we've buffed out the shine and we've smoothed out that seam, we're going to go ahead and just take our brush and dust off any of that extra debris left over from filing. And then we're going to take more of that dehydration or bonding agent. This is the Kiara Sky Bond. I'm not going to apply it to the actual extension, but I'm going to be applying it down near the cuticle area. This is going to remove any of that extra dust that has been collecting in that area while we've been filing and buffing the nail. This will ensure that we don't have lift when we get ready to apply the dip powder in the next step. So this is the final step of step 3. We're going to move on to step 4, where the fun part begins, and that's the actual application of the dip powder. Finally, we're here at this fun part. All right, you guys, I will see you in the next video.